Welcome to another edition of Vegas Badboyz of Podcasting. I'm DJ Impact. I got the Vegas Badboyz here with me, and welcome to the recount. So we got three good stories for you this show, and let us know what you think about it. Let's start off with the very first one. That's from BleacherReport.com, and it's titled AEW would be elevated to a whole new level by signing CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. So let me read some of this article here. It talks about that All Elite Wrestling landing both Daniel Bryan and CM Punk would be amongst the most unprecedented moves in pro wrestling history. The column could end right there too. A promotion not named WWE giving wrestling fans more Daniel Bryan and the long wished for Punk return in the same calendar year, if not a month, would be unparalleled in terms of scope given today's wrestling landscape. So with Bryan apparently on the way to AEW, and that's according to Wrestling Observer Radio, in part because of his relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Punk in talks, according to Fightful, according to Fightful, fans just entered a we're living history moment. And AEW bringing in Bryan along is wild. We're talking about one of the best performers in WWE history, one of the most superstars in generation, and it just goes on and on and on and on. It talks about them Punk angle isn't hard to figure out either. He's been the fantasy booked into endless returns for close to a decade, where the fans is hoping for his entry in a Royal Rumble to even working with AEW when the company was in its infancy. So, it says that that's a short way of saying that he would bring a ton of new fans and remember. And then it talks about remembering the pipe bomb and how many lapsed fans he's brought back, and even how many new fans does he pull into the business outright thanks to his forays into things like UFC, comics, and AEW. Now, finish. It says it does help with AEW's already stacked roster-wise, and how many dream matches are we talking here? And it just goes through a few. Comparisons only make this greater point all more salient. WWE recently brought back Goldberg for another title match he hasn't earned. As fun as it may be, it's running John Cena and Roman Reigns again. It's cutting loose talents like Aleister Black and not making the most of guys like Keith Lee. And then the conclusion, in short, we go from wondering whether AEW can sell out a mid-sized arena to one of those seats of 50,000 or more, or spitballing whether Tony Khan's promotion could ever consistently beat Raw in rating metrics in matter of the win. Now, they do talk about the idea that they are at least 40 when it comes to their age, and that Punk hasn't been in the ring for a while. But it also says that Bryan is still one of the best wrestlers on the planet, and that Punk was criminally underrated for his in-ring work, and if nothing else, is probably still the best in the world when it comes to the mic. So, adding Bryan and Punk, it says that would be historic and could possibly swing the balance of power in the industry more than anything to date this century. So this has been, I guess, a rumor, guys, that's been that happened sometime this past week. It's better just to go on and start off with our good old AEW analyst himself, Sin City Steve, and you tell me, since you've heard all of these rumblings, how do you feel AEW will be elevated if it's true of the signing of CM Punk and Daniel Bryan coming over?
Well, I think it's obvious. And, as you were kind of recapping that article, saying that AEW would be elevated to a whole new level by signing CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, I guess that I could just reply to that by saying, wow, so water is wet and fire is hot. Thank you. No shit, they would be elevated to another level. I mean, it goes without saying. Realistically speaking, the overwhelming theme with AEW signing away certain particular talents and having them show up on their programming has always been, who else are they going to sign away from WWE? And quite frankly, I've taken a lot of shit for it on the show. And I out of any names that are out there, barring John Cena and Roman Reigns, no one else would make as much of a splash as Daniel Bryan and CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Bryan and CM Punk within the same 2-month period, get the fuck out of here. That would be monumental. Now, obviously, AEW is launching a new program. So they're going to be launching Rampage. That kicks off on August the 13th. They are also moving Dynamite to TBS. Now, a common misconception that a lot of people have is that it's a downward trajectory type move to move Dynamite from TNT to TBS, when in all actuality, TBS is in more homes and more households than TNT is. So they have the potential of actually having more eyes on their TV product than ever before. According to, obviously, take it with a grain of salt, but according to the wonderful and guy that never gets anything wrong, Dave Meltzer, Daniel Bryan has already signed.
Yeah.
So that's done. Now, obviously, as of this very moment, they haven't had any confirmation that Punk is signed. However, according to, rumors and innuendo and all that kind of shit on the internet, the fact that they were able to sign Daniel Bryan is something that actually has kind of pushed Punk to even considering signing with a pro wrestling company. So it's a huge get for them to get Daniel Bryan, and it's going to be an even larger get for them to get CM Punk if that happens. Now, we can sit here and postulate and fantasy book and think of how they're going to use these guys, or when they're going to debut, or any of that kind of stuff. But realistically speaking, once Ride of the Valkyries hits, or once Cult of Personality hits, then we'll know legitimately that they are with AEW. Until that happens, it's all just rumors. It's all just bullshit. It's all just speculation. So I think that there are a lot of things that are pointing in the right direction for AEW. And as an AEW fan from day one, I'm here for it. I love it. I think that it's going to be awesome to watch unfold. But again, until it actually happens, I won't believe it until I see it.
Let me ask you, let me jump over to you, Matt Michaels, because sometimes we have talks during the week. And when you heard about this, we're kind of sounding a little bit different from what Sin City Steve says. I mean, Steve says, when they title it, the AEW be elevated to a whole new level. He says, come on, that's like saying water is wet. That's a given. But after having a conversation with you, you didn't seem like it was just that simple or that easy. What's your take when you heard about all of this happening? Do you think this is going to elevate them if this is actually going to happen?
So you're going to get eyes on the product quickly. Okay. But Daniel Bryan just turned 40, and Punk is turning 43 this year. In 1994, when Hogan signed with WCW, he was 41. WCW was out of business 7 years later. So sign them. Put all the money you want into them. But, just know that the consequences in the end could be greater than the attention you get now. Because, again, if you look and you're adding another programming hour, fine. Presumably, that's going to end up being for talent that needs, more seasoning. But at some point, that money's going to run out, man. And the problem is that, look, your competition, if you want to call it competition, because that's what the fans like doing, is calling it competition. the true thing is that people are starting to spout off, well, it's going to do better than Raw and blah, blah, blah. That's great. And guaranteed within the next 7 years, time that it would, that it took from Hogan signing to WCW's demise, give it a 7-year window, and most likely the WWE will totally have changed. So their evolution will come once again off of the a rival company taking the focus off of them for a while. And, that's the whole thing. Listen, to be quite honest, I don't trust Tony Khan at all. I think that Tony Khan could burn down the house in fucking just a matter of minutes, basically. Because, this is a guy who I think that more than anything, he wants to be liked. And he wants to hang out with wrestlers, and Daddy didn't love him. So,
That's harsh.
One thing that just from the chat, Sean says WCW had a lot of things going against them rather than the talent. The cons are worth billions. They have the time to be patient. And with that, I agree. This is not like the WCW situation, because with WCW, you were working with Ted Turner, you were working with Time Warner, you were working with, the mega conglomerate companies.
I guess people who didn't know nothing about wrestling. Right?
They didn't know anything about wrestling.
But at the same time, Tony Khan doesn't.
Of course,
he doesn't.
Still, okay, great.
I'm sorry, Steve. I just gave you 7 years. I gave you a 7-year time frame. So that's the thing. The thing is that, WCW, of course, it had other things going against it. But I'll tell you right now, as soon as the NWO got popular, what happened? Eric Bischoff started going in front of the fucking camera. And when Eric Bischoff took his eyes off of what he was doing, the fucking ship sank. Tony Khan is in the same position. The motherfucker is going to start feeding his own ego. Oh, wait, he has already? Oh, okay. Okay, let's go.
Let me jump over to Simon Street.
It's gonna happen.
You've heard both angles of Sin City and Matt Michaels. I'm curious, where do you fall in this? Do you see this as being a good thing, a successful thing for AEW, or you think this might not be as good as it sounds?
After listening to both gentlemen, which made very valid points, I'm only going to put it in my perspective on short term, long term. Short term, great for AEW, obviously, all eyes. And I think about two specific groups. One group I belong into, someone who watched AEW avidly, who does not now, watches it sparingly. You say Daniel Bryan, you fucking say CM Punk, my ass gonna be freaking watching Dynamite and Rampage when that motherfucker come on. Okay? People who don't watch AEW at all, that other group, they will for sure. Daniel Bryan, yes, maybe. Okay? CM Punk, fuck yeah, they will watch it. Short term. Long term, how are you utilizing them with what you're currently doing with your younger talent? That's going to be what's going to determine your long term. If you are taking them, and I know Daniel Bryan is somebody that has been outspoken in his time in WWE, even back when he was in Ring of Honor, how he really believes in the evolution of giving back. He's always been outspoken with that. If they go with that, I think long term it could be beneficial to them.
One of the things that the article said is the dream matchups, just putting it in terms. And one of the names that was mentioned was Sting and CM Punk. And I think that right there is where the problem.
Yeah, right.
But if I may say, the difference is between Sting and what he's doing and Daniel Bryan. To me, it's two different things. I could actually see it be a competitive match, or you could go a longer distance with Daniel Bryan at this point versus what Sting's doing.
That's not the point. The point is, do you want to see Sting wrestle either of those guys, or would you rather see those guys wrestle young talent that they're developing.
I'd rather see those guys wrestle younger talent. 100%.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
do not want to. Honestly, I only want to see Sting come out with the little snowflakes and shit with a bat, look at somebody, point, and walk the fuck back out there. I don't want to see him in any matches of any sort. That's just my opinion.
The telling truth was that, you know, the guy even said that, hey, you could see Jericho and Punk again, although Jericho is not the same performer he was then. Well, then why the fuck do I want to see it again? You know, that's the thing. And what you're looking at is, and Sean, you know, makes a good point. Yeah, they got lots of money. Well, at some point, they're not going to have money, especially for people like your own son, who you would like to see get signed by a company like that and get nurtured and put in a top position. So, hey, that's great if they can take it on. But what I'm saying is, in the long term, like Simon was saying, this is not something that you continue to practice. And if you continue to put money into the retreads that the WWE is not allowing to be on their roster anymore, then, you know, or don't want to sign back with them, that's fine. Put the money out. But you have to have a long-term plan. And that's the thing that is questionable, is what is their long-term plan? I mean, listen, you got what are the street or who is it? Private Party. See, I can't even keep it in my fucking mind straight. Private Party. That was supposed to be your golden fucking tag team. What are they doing? They're fucking running in for Matt fucking Hardy right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's it. I just don't see what the fuck is going to happen if more people keep coming over with bigger names. The same marks who are like, well, WWE are going to be going, well, this is fucking fabulous, even though it's just WWE. So,
well, if I may say something, the one thing I will say, the reason why I enjoy watching NXT at this point, and that's going to take away from AEW what they're doing, because I don't watch them much, so I don't have much of an opinion, is I like that I can see a direction. Okay. I can see a direction of what they plan on doing with some of these newer talents, trying new different things, trying up different matchups. Now, again, limitedly how I watch AEW, I don't see, even from the time when I was watching them avidly to now very sparingly, do I see that. I would like to, if I have a wish list, to actually see that. You bring in Daniel Bryan, I want to see him go up against Orange Cassidy. I want to see him go up with some of the newer talent, as more of like, not so much a proving stick, but seasoning them. But I also wonder, and this goes out to you, Steve, because you're the analyst. If you look at all of these retreads, what's so hard with saying you only got 5 spots in AEW for retreads? When them 5 spots are taken up, the retread spots are gone. You can't come back in. Somebody got to go. So that way you have more time to get new talent. Because now you said you're going to have Rampage, right? That's what, Fridays or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Friday.
you're going to have Dynamite whenever that, probably same slot on TBS. And then
Same
you still
slot
got,
just on TBS.
Okay, so you still got what's their other show that they have? Dark
Elevation.
And Dark Elevation. So my point is, at what point are you going to have spots rotating the younger talent to season them with, again, I'm only saying 5 spots for retreads. Because I'm seeing way too many retreads, and that's more of the problem. Not the retreads themselves, but way too many. And if you're not utilizing them, you're fucking yourself real quick. And hey, trust me, a lot of people fuck themselves over and over again because they got too much money to keep fucking themselves. Hopefully, Tony Khan's not going to keep fucking himself.
All right. Did you want to say anything, City, on that, or are we going to?
No, I completely agree, man.
Okay.
I think that they're walking a fine line. Quite honestly, after Punk and the Danielson acquisitions, I would be completely fine if they put up the wall and just say, all right, no more. That needs to happen at some point. That needs to happen. They cannot continue to just, pick up every single person that WWE cuts loose.
All right. Our second count from Sports Illustrated, it's titled Paul Heyman's Talking Smack Departure underscores WWE's creative issue. So let me read some of this article here so we can get an idea what we're talking about. It says WWE shows, particularly Monday Night Raw, are built around generating an immediate reaction. The standard operating procedure is to highlight the current stars, or in case of John Cena and Bill Goldberg, legacy stars, instead of consistently making new ones. This approach was evident through the recent change of Talking Smack into a studio show, and taking Paul Heyman off the show is a blow for fans and the WWE talent. Now, Talking Smack added realism, authenticity to a very scripted WWE product, and Heyman brought more viral momentum to Talking Smack than any other WWE show currently airing. New stars are consistently being made, and Heyman was continually selling for the talent and always putting over Roman Reigns, which highlighted the weekly product. During this time on Talking Smack, Heyman both got talent over and helped teach them how to get over so they could present themselves as genuine stars. Those who watched every week saw how he worked off script, but never off message. His interactions with Big E, Kevin Owens, Apollo Crews, and Sami Zayn were all examples of outstanding television. Pat McAfee briefly replaced Heyman, and he would have brought a unique quality to the show, but the company decided it wasn't feasible to film Talking Smack after SmackDown on Friday nights. Unlike the Thunderdome, there is now a breakdown each week following SmackDown that has left Talking Smack an entirely changed show. And this was a product that was better and different from anything produced by any other wrestling company. But without Heyman or the show's blend of new information and character development, WWE has lost a valuable piece of unique programming. And all this connects to the issue of the immediate reaction in lieu of building more stars. It is hard to find multiple instances where long-term goals are visible, especially on Raw, too often. Raw is presented in a manner that leaves no cards on the tables for the show 2 weeks later. And it just talks about that this past week that Raw certainly didn't lack excitement, talking about Cena's return and Goldberg appeal for the first time since January. Talks about Nikki A.S.H. Cashing in on her title. And then, and now it talks about, let's look at it. Now, examine the long-term planning, like Kofi Kingston was demolished at Money in the Bank to build up Goldberg. Shouldn't that have been the other way around? What about Karrion Kross, the undefeated NXT champion? They beat him on Raw and lost to Jeff Hardy. His arrival should have been full of pomp, aura, mystery. Instead, he loses a throwaway match to Hardy that immediately devalued his standing. And why bring Keith Lee back to Raw and have him lose his first match? Lee should have won the first 25 matches back. He's exactly the type of athletic, charismatic performer WWE should be building around. So to sum up, it says that the intentions here are not to bash Vince McMahon. Okay, McMahon and the company president and Khan have WWE in the position to make even more of a profit than it did last year. Think about that. In a position to even make more of a profit than it did last year, which was a year that saw the company enjoy its greatest financial success. So McMahon's job ultimately is to raise the stock and to drive a profit for shareholders. And clearly he understands the distribution better than anyone. Yet criticism is still fair, and he's not accepted the cultural change and digestion of product and what it takes to get someone over in 2021. Will we ever see that vision come to life each week on television? It's an element vital to the future of WWE. He said a lot there. Let me go over to you this time, Simon Street. He talks about Paul Heyman. First off, that the idea of not having him on, that this is a blow for fans and the WWE talent. Would you agree with that statement he made?
Yes and no. Yes, because it's a missed opportunity, not a blow. But then you got to ask yourself the question, if the only reason why that show was successful was because Heyman was basically carrying it on his back, what does that say to the other co-host for that, which was Kayla Braxton? Obviously, if you take out Paul Heyman, how much sense does it make to keep that show going if Paul Heyman ain't on it?
Hey, question for you, Simon. Just out of curiosity, and this is not like a play to rip you or anything. Do you watch Talking Smack at all?
Every once in a while. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I don't watch it directly after the show. Sometimes I'll watch it later, but that's only after the buzz that's received online, after what was said, normally by Paul Heyman. So, I mean, at the end of the day, think about it. Just from what you just asked me. There's a lot of people that are probably the same way I am. Don't even watch it unless there's some buzz up or something that Paul Heyman said. That show revolved around him. Why keep it back on him? I mean, it would have been nice if they had what's his name on there. Damn, I can't top of his damn name at all. Announcer on Raw. I'm not Raw.
Corey
I'm sorry.
Graves.
Not Corey Graves, and you put him with McAfee. Something like that possibly could have been good. I don't know. I mean, and that's even a small candle compared to what Heyman was able to do. Dude was pure genius. You can't replace him. So if he's not doing it, you need to shut down the show.
I'll ask you the same question, Sin City. Did you happen to watch Talking Smack?
Honestly, hardly ever.
Hardly ever. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not a problem. Well, I mean, listen, you know enough about Paul Heyman that most of the article was just saying how much he brings to the show by putting over stars and everything, and understanding that was being what was having on the show. Do you think now not having him on is truly a blow for fans or for WWE talent?
No, and here's why. Talking Smack
Okay.
is not and has not ever been canon to WWE storylines. So
Okay.
they would, they would be given set up lines and set up promos by, from Heyman. And when given opportunity, a lot of these men and women killed it. They knocked it out of the park. Why would WWE do that on a show and then turn right around and basically counter program themselves by portraying their characters in a different light entirely from what they were on Talking Smack or Raw Talk or any of those post shows that they did? I could definitely see it if they were going to find a way to, bring that into canon and into the traditional WWE storyline. But the fact is they didn't. They had several occasions. The first thing that comes to mind immediately was the Miz and Daniel Bryan, when they had what a lot of people felt to be a very fiery segment there. Okay, That's great. You can capitalize that. You can capitalize on that, and you can work that into storylines. Why they didn't do that more frequently, I have no idea. But literally, it feels like as if I'm watching a promo class from NXT that will never make a damn bit of difference with anybody. And thus, why should I get invested in those same characters when I know that they're not going to get the same exact or the same opportunity or anything similar on the main programs?
Got you. All right. Let me ask you this, Matt Michaels. In part of the article, it said that the WWE roster is overflowing with the collection of the most talented women and men in the industry. Long-term creative needs to be the vocal point for WWE as it returns to live crowds with a vision for next week's Raw, next month's SmackDown, and next year's shows too. Do you agree with what he's saying now? And do you feel that they are doing that or not doing that?
I think that, first of all, he covered his ass by burying Vince McMahon and then saying, not trying to bury Vince McMahon. Number two, and this is a very big point nowadays, for all these people who like to write gossip columns and dirt sheets and stuff, I'll tell you one thing that sticks out to me right now. No one knows what Nick Khan is doing. It's not slipping through. So that's something that's very important here, because everyone is just blaming Vince, which is great. Keep blaming Vince, because the product is being changed by these outside sources come in to run a business that eventually is not going to have Vince McMahon there. So they're setting up their profitability and they're setting up their, accessibility. I think, Steve, you brought up Daniel Bryan and Miz. What's funny is this article did not bring up that iteration of the show at all.
No.
And the reason that one was getting, a little buzz and stuff is because it was the first time that WWE was basically breaking kayfabe and shooting a little bit and letting them say, because it wasn't being overseen. They were just allowing it because it really didn't factor in. And I think that when they took that away and you know, it was something that they still had interest in doing, because when they get the Fox deal, they start Backstage. Now, Backstage gets killed because of the fact that you got a pandemic going on, and basically, you know, they just fucking stopped it before, you know, they put more money into it and stuff. But I think the Fox was very into that idea. And again, one of the things they were able to do is have the talent come on and then, do a little kayfabe, but pretty much do shoot. So now you bring this back and you have this in a situation where, again, they're trying this. Honestly, none of us know what Paul Heyman's situation is. Look, Paul Heyman's not 33 years old anymore. He's also not in the most healthiest of shape. And if they're going out and they're going to be traveling on the road and stuff, honestly, Paul Heyman is probably one of the first people you want to say, okay, you've been here all day and into the night, and you were part of the main event because you're with Roman Reigns. Hey, would you like to go home now? And it's as simple as that. So you shoot it as a studio show, and really it has no relevance. There were only times that it caught some fire where things were said. That's fine and dandy, but in the long term, did it bring other viewers to the product long term? No. So, you know, this article, I think, was more specifically written so that once the person started writing it and saying, yeah, it's a bad idea to get rid of this because Paul Heyman's so great. You know, Karrion Kross lost on Raw. That was dumb. You know, he just went into the whole other direction, and it's just like, okay, all right. So, you know.
Hey, man. Hey, this is Sports Illustrated. This is a reputable magazine company. It's been around for years. They have the top writers on their staff. Okay.
What's a magazine?
And you know what? People still only buy, the swimsuit Sports Illustrated more than the actual Sports Illustrated magazine.
Okay. There you go.
Next, you're going to tell me Playboy doesn't have any nude women in it anymore.
Exactly. Come on now. Come on.
All right, let's go.
Articles.
There you go. Hey, they have pretty good topics in there. The third count from WrestlingNews.co is titled, Kenny Omega says he's open to a WWE AEW working relationship once more women wrestling on AEW Rampage. So let's talk about it. Apparently, Kenny Omega, he was interviewed on Wrestling Observer Radio, and this is kind of the things he talked about. He said, Omega said he stumbled on the whole, quote, belt collector thing, end quote, on promos, and he knew that the schedule would be taxing emotionally and mentally, but he wanted to show that he can happen when what can happen when promotions play nice with each other. He said, quote, I really wanted to open the floodgates and show what it's like when people play nice with one another. I really think it's a situation where only fans win, end quote. Quote, the one huge crossover will you ever see WWE team up with anybody? Who knows? I feel as the world evolves and changes and time goes by, people become more open-minded to things, whether it be wrestlers themselves, people in the office, the fans. I wouldn't hold my breath, but at the same time, I would never say it's impossible, end quote. Now, also, Omega also talked about the AEW Rampage and the lack of women's wrestling on Dynamite. Quote, I feel like the content I think we're lacking in our women's division. I would love to see Rampage be home to more women wrestling, and I want people to see and appreciate and enjoy some of the talent that we have to offer. And I hope that we could get out and show some of these matches that are perhaps aren't seen by enough people. We've got a lot of great talent on Dark, and people maybe don't want to watch our YouTube channel. Maybe they just want to watch Dynamite and they want to see a television product, and I get that. I think the extra hour on Rampage, I feel that rather than just give them more Chris Jericho, more Kenny Omega, more MJF, I'd rather give them all the extremely talented individuals that maybe you can't see that week, and especially for me. I feel that we got incredibly gifted female wrestlers and have been working really hard, fighting for a spot. And maybe it's time for them to get some more. I think that I would count as a variation in my pocket, more women's wrestling. And he ended with saying, and then Omega said that AEW should be kept as a variety show where fans get a little bit more of everything. All right. So let me start over with you, Matt Michaels. I'm only going to ask you in terms of his quote towards WWE and AEW. Let me just throw it out there. Based on what you've seen with AEW and Impact Wrestling starting this whole collaboration, would you even think that it would be a good idea for WWE to entertain the idea of doing something with AEW or doing anything with anyone? I know it was rumored before that they were going to do something with MLW, and I don't know how true that's still going to happen. But what is your take based on, what you've seen since this has happened, this whole thing has happened, where WWE would fit in collaborating with AEW or other promotions? Is he stuck? Oh, I think he's stuck.
Is he stuck?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I thought he was.
He might be asleep. He might be
frame
asleep.
His frame is frozen. Okay, let's jump over to you. I'll ask that question to you, Simon Street. We'll come back. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, what would be your take on that? Yeah, he just completely disappeared. So, what would be your take? Have you been watching? Let me ask you to make sure it's a fair question. Have you been watching a lot of the collaboration that's been happening between? You know what? Let me hold that off on you, okay? Because I want to ask you the women's. Let me ask you the women's title. Not the women's, but the women question that they threw. Sin City, let me go to you on this one because you've been keeping up with the collaboration. Based on what you've seen from AEW and Impact Wrestling, where do you think WWE would fit into this? Is this something you think they should do, not do? Now that they're watching, seeing what these other two are doing, they may be like, yeah, we'll just stay out of this. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I would, as a fan, I would love to see WWE interact with any other promotion, whether it's MLW. I know that they had talks about New Japan, and even prior to that, they had talked about having a working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan as well. Mm-hmm. But all those things fell through for one reason or another. Obviously, I would love to see any of those things happen, but yeah. I don't think that it'll happen. It's just not in the playbook of Vince McMahon to play well with others.
Right.
He seemingly can't play nice with any other promoters, and that's not necessarily a dig on him, because he is an alpha. He is an alpha male. And it's one of those things where, unless his guys are going to beat your guys on every single match, on every single show, and take all your championships, he probably doesn't even want to entertain that thought. And
right.
To be real, knowing what WWE started from and where they started from, he can make that decision. They are a multi-billion-dollar company. So they can definitely make that decision. They do not need to interact with any other promotions, and they're going to be fine. You were just talking about them possibly looking at turning over their greatest profits that they've ever had. So
right.
I genuinely don't see it happening, brother. Sorry.
Yeah. Probably right on that. Let me ask you, Simon Street. He talks about that. He says, I would love to see Rampage to be home of more women wrestling, and I want people to see and appreciate and enjoy some of the talent that we have to offer. And I hope we can get out and show some of these matches that are perhaps aren't seen by enough people. I guess my question would be to you is, I guess Rampage is looking to be, he said, hopefully that would be the home for that. But why can't Dynamite be the home for that? Why do we have to look for, Rampage to maybe be what showcase a lot of the women wrestling? Why can't we allow what we have now to be the showcase for them?
Well, I mean, the way I also look at that too, saying that, let's just say, because that hasn't been confirmed first and foremost. That's just a thought that he said. But let's just say if it was confirmed that Rampage, do you know how many hours Rampage is going to be? It's going to be just an hour or 2 hours? 1. Okay, so 1 hour. Okay, so let's just say, in fairness, 30 minutes, half of the show, dedicated to the women's division of AEW. Okay, that's roughly at best two matches, right? Maybe. It might not be a bad thing if that time is utilized and it's consistently dedicated to showing that would have been. I still think their crown show is going to be Dynamite, if I'm not mistaken. That's still going to be their flagship show. But having what we normally would see on Dark, and what's the other one since they see Dark and
Dark Elevation.
Dark Elevation. I was going to say Revolution. Dark Elevation. Normally people wouldn't see on those shows, would see it on a Rampage for the women's division. Because look, I'm going to be honest with you. They got 23 women in their women's division. Out of those ones, you probably see about 12, maybe. And I'm being nice. You would be able to see some of those 23, guaranteed 5, who are ready to go. You would see them every week on Rampage, right? So that's giving them more time because I think they got the right ingredients for a good, solid women's division, but not enough time slots. And obviously AEW is working on trying to figure out time slots and retreads. We talked about that. So as far as their women's division, it would be great if Kenny Omega, from what he's seen in this article, could at least dedicate half of the show just to their women's division. That would be great. Would they do it for the whole show? Shit, I'd be freaking happy, but I doubt that would happen. But yes, to answer your question, I would be happy for it. I think that Dynamite should be for women's title defenses, or if you have a really strong storyline for, that involves women's division, have it be on Dynamite because that's your flagship show, and then have Rampage be the kind of testing ground, like the building block show to kind of, test out the waters outside of Dark.
Okay. All right. And Michaels, welcome back. You can choose either one or both of these. WWE, Kenny Omega says he's open to a WWE AEW working relationship. So what would be your thoughts on that? And maybe what would be your thoughts also on the idea of him saying that, maybe a Rampage could be more focused on women's wrestling? I question Simon Street and says, well, why not, Dynamite be the show that can showcase more? But if Rampage is where he's thinking, then I guess so. What will be your take on these two comments he made?
Oh, you start with that one pretty easily and go, who books the women? Oh yeah, Kenny Omega.
Right.
So yeah, whatever. You know what? Get him out of there in terms of that end of it, and have someone who knows what they're doing. Of course, he would be open to working with WWE because they'd get a huge ratings boost. They get new eyes on the product. They would, it's the WWE doesn't work with companies to, because of the fact that they're the standard bearer. They have the reputation and the synonymous name with wrestling. What's very interesting about this is that everyone is talking as if, well, the WWE will never work with companies. But if you look, ECW worked with WWE. Evolve working with WWE. There are instances that show that WWE will work with things, but they're not going to work on something that is going to be direct competition with them. Pretty simple. Which is how it should be. Why would you want to, use, and this goes across all forms of entertainment. If you are building your product and you have something that that is bigger than you, and you would like to work with them, but they don't want to work with you, well, it's because they don't want you getting their rub. That's pretty simple. So, and I think that, what's the most interesting thing about this is how Kenny said the the cleaner thing came to him, by doing this and that.
Right.
The one thing that I find hysterical about this is, well, yeah, of course Kenny would like to work with WWE. Why? Because he's the cleaner, and then he could have the WWE belt. There is not one person in wrestling right now who I think is more self-centered than him. Because you notice he came up with the cleaner idea. It came to him, but he didn't have to take it himself. He could have given it to someone else in the company. Why aren't you putting the titles on, someone like an MJF or a Darby Allin or an Orange Cassidy or, any of those young? They could have been a cleaner, but no. Because, Kenny came up with the idea. So now I got to take the demand and responsibility of having all these belts. Oh, woe is me. As you like to say, DJ, he doesn't even show up with the TNA belt, nor the Impact belt. So,
right.
I listen, the sooner Kenny Omega decides to just go to the background of things, I think that's your key to Impact really starting to, or not Impact, well, Impact getting a show back. But to AEW, I think that if you're looking at bringing in guys like Punk and Daniel, bring them in, but have guys like Kenny Omega and the Bucks go away for a while. Get them out of there. That's how you balance this out. But
yeah,
I guarantee you, the one thing that no one talks about is this. You bring in all these egos, and that is where everything's going to end up exploding.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we end it, just to go on that, so I watched this week's AEW, and one thing I noticed is when Omega comes out, there really isn't any reaction. I mean, you hear a little bit. I mean, when you compare it to a Moxley or a Darby, it's just huge. And listen, even if you're the bad guy, you want to get the boos. When Roman comes out, you hear everybody. Boy, you don't hear anything when Omega. I mean, Cincinnati, am I wrong on that? I'm kind of confused as, he's supposed to create this whole thing being the belt collector and being AEW champ, but it seems like the fans in many ways don't seem to care. Am I wrong on that? Or
I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that. Keep in mind though,
okay.
You did throw out the Roman Reigns example. And I agree largely with that, but anymore, I've taken WWE's crowd reactions with a grain of salt because they've sweetened crowd reactions for years.
Yeah, but Steve, along that example though, and I don't know if you ever noticed it at a WWE show, because I don't know how many you've attended. I mean, you've
quite a few.
Yeah. Yep. So one of the things that I think that we can all substantially say is that Roman Reigns, John Cena, when they would come out, that wasn't being sweetened. Those were I fucking hate these guys boos. It wasn't necessarily because of their characters, but they were getting heat just for being who they are.
Right. Yeah.
The problem with Kenny is he doesn't get the heat that he should be getting, nor does he get the elevation of a babyface either.
Right. Yeah. That's why.
Ultimately, it's time to take the championship off of him, and I've said that for weeks. Mm-hmm. It's time. It's time.
He's stale. He's stale.
Well, it's not only that. I would go as far as to say that he never was anything. He can't be stale because he wasn't anything. If you looked at pre-pandemic, he wasn't in the top picture. Then they give him the belt during the pandemic, and there was no. I don't think there's an emotional attachment to him in general. The same thing, unfortunately, can be said with Hangman. It's taking him so long to figure out how the hell do we get this guy over.
I don't know if you've watched AEW since they've come back, Michaels, but Hangman has been getting one hell of an ovation since they've been back and actually had crowds other than Daly's place. He's
But
gotten extremely
He
large
has.
pops.
He's gotten some pops.
But-
I give him
but-
that. Not
but-
Omega, but yeah, Hangman.
But Steve, you missed what I said on that last part, and that was it's taken them forever to get him the reactions, and I think that that's the problem. If you look at Omega, they're not listening to it. Why? Well, because one of the things is the guy's a fucking EP in the company. What does he do? Not only puts a belt on himself, but puts belts from other companies on him. And it's like, come on, man. Moxley was so fucking over. And you just kind of go, okay, we're gonna put it on Kenny. Put it on Kenny. Because he's the best in the world.
All right, guys. Thank you for the conversation there. We're going to give our final thoughts, and we normally kick that off with Simon Street, so we'll continue with that. What you want the good people to know, man?
Well, for all you good people out there, thank you so much for continuing to support our show. We really do appreciate it, and we can't do this without you. And please, if you feel the need or the itch to sponsor us and continue to do the show, when it's Impact's turn, he'll go ahead and give you the proper way to go ahead and do that. We appreciate every little bit, from 50 cents to $400 or more. We appreciate it, and we'll accept anything. And the money goes toward the show, producing more content, making sure that everything is tip-top shape so that we can give you the best product possible. So thank you.
No doubt. And what he's talking about is the Cash App. If you have the Cash App, all you do is go in there, put the money sign Vegas, and then the word Badboyz with the Z, and feel free to add any amount. All that, like he says, does go to help promote us out there in our social media so other people can find us and enjoy the show like you do. All right. Sin City Steve, what you want the good people to know?
Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight in the chat. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, all the great shit that you guys do on a regular basis. We do this show for you, as we just mentioned. Extremely special shout out to those brave men and women serving this country on lands both foreign and domestic. Thank you for what you do. You enable us to be able to do this show and to have the freedom to do this show. So thank you. And last but not least, repsports.com, REPP sports.com. Go there for all of your pre-workout, weight loss, and general energy needs. Repsports.com. Use promo code Vegas at checkout and save yourself 15%.
Awesome. All right. And Matt Michaels, what you want to tell the people?
Yeah, this past weekend, apparently there was a WrestleCon going on in South Carolina, and Steve Kern was there, and he made an announcement, I think on Friday night, that B. Brian Blair's oldest son had passed away, and he was not that old. The details are sketchy, but we just send out our thoughts to him and the family at this time. And DJ, the next 2 Sundays, on the 1st and the 8th, we're going to be recording our Wrestling Talk and 3 Count. And those episodes will come out then on Monday and Tuesday of those weeks. And I think, is there something we can share with the audience to know what's going on for a little special thing that's going on for SummerSlam?
Absolutely. So SummerSlam, of course, is going to be in Las Vegas. That date is it the 14th or the 21st?
21st.
21st, yes. 21st, that's a Saturday. It's going to be lots of people here, and we want to make sure that you can also be there as well, especially if you have not got your tickets. We are going to start a competition where you can get a couple of passes to actually attend SummerSlam. All you would need to do is to listen to Wrestling Talk and 3 Count starting next week. And after you listen to that week's show, you will have the following week. So you're going to have 2 weeks you're going to have to listen, and we will give you all the information as to what you need to do. You'll be going over to our website and putting in some information. But at the very end, there will be pretty much a what do they call that? A raffle or giveaway. Yes. As we choose who will be the winner of those pairs of tickets. And we're very excited to be able to put this promotion together. Tell other people about it, especially if you already have your tickets and maybe you know someone who don't have tickets, maybe they can't afford the tickets. Tell them and you know they enjoy wrestling. Tell them to just listen to our show, and they will have a chance to win it. And it'll be just as easy as just listening. We'll end up giving you a word, a code word. And all you would do is make sure you have that word and input that information, and you'll be included. All right. It's exciting times. Keep listening. And most importantly, lock into our social media. All right. If you listen to our podcast, but you don't have us locked into your IG or Facebook or Twitter, then you're missing out on keeping up with everything that we do. So same things in the search, Vegas Badboyz with the Z. Make sure to just follow us. And with that, you also will, you know what's going on. So with that, thank you for listening, and we will we'll see you next week. You want to be on next week because that's when everything starts. All right. Until then,